to.
Hi, I'm Pamela Davis, the creator and producer of the Reincarnation Chronicle, welcoming you back for some more information while we delve into some of the more esoteric and fascinating aspects related to reincarnation, but not exactly part of the technical or critical picture. However, what we're going to be looking at now is ghosts and other dimensions. And you might wonder, well, okay, why are we talking about ghosts when we're supposed to be examining reincarnation? Well, it's really important because as we go through our different incarnations and try to make choices that are going to lead us into future experiences that would be more to our choosing and preference, we want to be able to understand how not to do things so that we do not end up as ghosts. Nobody would want to end up as a ghost if they really understood what that could mean. But what is a ghost? A ghost is a soul that is attached on the lower planes of existence, the lower astral and the earth plane, for all kinds of different reasons, all of them uncomfortable when you have a haunting ghost. Now, attachment is, and this is how it relates directly to reincarnation, attachment is the primary issue with karma, and it's what brings us back time and again. Our attachment to all kinds of different things. They could be very positive things and they could also be obsessive or negative things. But it's attachment that is the main issue, and certainly the issue with ghosts. Now, in order to explain more about ghosts, I'm going to talk to you about my own personal experience to begin with. And believe it or not, I have lived in 3 separate residences that were haunted by ghosts. I've moved around a lot. I've lived in a lot of different houses over the years, and somehow in the course of my moving around, I have managed to inhabit 3 haunted houses, which may seem really excessive, but actually it's not. A haunting is a far more common phenomenon than people tend to realize. There is a marvelous series right now on television called The Dead Files, and it's all about a very talented medium by the name of Amy Allen, who goes all over the country with her partner, a retired homicide detective, investigating homes that are reported to be haunted and trying to bring relief to the people living in these places, or sometimes their businesses. And they're never going to run out of locations because they are everywhere. So let's get into it now. Many years ago, my husband and I, my late husband, bought a wonderful landmark house in Santa Monica that was built in about 1924. And it was a marvelous old kind of had a southern feeling to it, a lovely veranda and so on. But the house, once we got into it, we realized that the plumbing and the electrical had to be completely replaced. And so at one point we had a three-story hole right in the middle of the house. And while we were doing the renovation on the house, we would walk back and forth from the garage into the main part of the house through a little room that was scheduled to be the last thing that we addressed. And every time we went through there, especially me, I thought, oh, what a dreadful little room this is. They had sprayed like acoustical material, like that asbestos stuff on the walls that normally goes onto ceilings. It's prickly if you touch it. And not only that, but then not only was it on the walls, but then they had sprayed it this horrible dull brown. And it was just awful. So every time we went through that room, we thought, well, it's this awful because of the walls and the terrible color. So we didn't pay much attention to it, thinking, well, we'll sort this out a little bit later on down the line. At the time, we were researching an amazing exhibit that eventually opened at the California Museum of Science and Industry called Continuum, the Immortality Principle, all about everything that you could possibly find through research about life after death. And we were working on this exhibit with two of our dearest friends, two women writers and researchers who were brilliant. The older one was an extremely gifted psychic channel and medium. Her name was Kay. And Kay and Kathy, her writing partner, would come to the house periodically and work with us doing research. Well, one of the times that they arrived, they came through the garage and walked through this ugly little room. And Kay got this weird look on her face, and her shoulders kind of tightened up, and she said, would it be okay with you if the next time that we come here, we bring, a little bit of tincture of benzoin and some rosemary and just ordinary things that you normally ask to bring to a friend's house, right? So I thought, uh-oh, what's wrong? So I asked her, well, do we have something here that shouldn't be here? And she just got a strange look on her face but didn't answer me. So the next time they came over, sure enough, they came all fitted out with, a pie plate and charcoal discs, little discs, and dried rosemary and tincture of benzoin, which you can get at the pharmacy. And they proceeded to prepare this. They would pile up the rosemary on the little disc of charcoal, and then sprinkle that liberally with tincture of benzoin and light it. And this produces a very pungent smoke. So they would walk through the house. We all followed her, and she walked through the house with this smoke through all along the perimeters and through the corners and everything. And when we came back to the ugly little room downstairs, the whole atmosphere became more charged with something that was not good. And her partner Kathy began to kind of palpate the room, the air in the room, to see if she could feel something. And sure enough, after a couple of minutes, she was able to distinguish some kind of resistant energy, almost like a wall of different density of energy in this big bay window area. And she said, okay, here it is, I found it. It was an area about a circle, basically around 5 feet in diameter. And sure enough, there was, when we all came and began to feel, like this, you could feel it. And then stepping into it was really a trip. It was several degrees colder. You could step in and feel the cold, and then step out, and it was warmer again. Well, this is where the ghost was anchored in the house. So Kay, who was a marvelous medium and channel, psychically connected with the ghost, who turned out to be this bitter old woman who was trapped there by her obsessive worry about her house that she'd had to leave unwillingly when she died, and very concerned about what we were doing to it, because she was aware that there was a lot of activity and that we were changing things, all for the better, but she was the kind that wouldn't have wanted anything changed. And so she complained and she moaned and talked about how nobody consulted her, nobody cared about what she thought ever, nobody ever had. People just did what they want, and the people she lived around were so irresponsible. The neighbors were such a mess. There was nobody who did anything right. And she was the most put upon soul in the world. Well, finally, Kay said, okay, well, we understand you're unhappy, but there are loving people in your family who are waiting for you on the other side, and you need to go to them. You need to go up into the light. Well, no, she didn't want to do anything like that. So the four of us joined hands, and it was just about big enough so that we could join hands around this area where she was. And Kay said, all right, now what we're all going to do is concentrate as much as we can, visualize powerful light coming through us and up underneath, picture coming underneath her and moving her up and into the tunnel of light where she should have gone when she transitioned in the first place. Well, we did that, and we concentrated on her removal, and we practically broke a sweat. I mean, this was not an easy thing to do. But gradually, after about 10 or 12 minutes, we began to feel a kind of easing a bit. And Kay said, all right, she said, the process is underway. She said she's on her way. It'll take a little while. But she said, when you come down here tomorrow morning, you're going to feel quite a difference. And sure enough, the next morning, we did feel a tremendous difference in the room. It was great. Well, about 6 months later, I was outside planting flowers in front of that bay window when my elderly neighbor from across the street came over just to be sweet and say, oh, what pretty flowers, and you've done such a nice job on the house, and it's so much nicer since you moved in. What a terrible thing it was to live across from that old, terrible, nasty, cranky old woman. So I had never heard her mention the woman before. And I said, well, oh, really? What was she? Oh, she was just miserable. She was terrible. And nothing was ever right. She even used to call the police and create trouble among the neighbors for no reason at all. She said, I'm so glad that you're here now and that she's not around. Well, of course, that was exactly the kind of person we had encountered. But the final confirmation came when we decided to sell the house and had to get an appraisal. And the appraiser that my husband happened to contact turned out to be an elderly man who had grown up in the house. And when he found out the address, he said, oh, I'll do it for free if you'll allow me to come and bring my wife. I'd love to see what you did with the house. So Sunday afternoon came, and this elderly couple came to the front door. I was not there in the room, but my husband answered the door and said, oh, come on in. Come on, come right in. Let me show you where we found your mother when we moved in. Well, I was right around the corner in the living room. I heard this. I couldn't believe my ears. I thought, this can't be. So I ran around the corner to try to do some damage control, but it was too late. They were following my husband into the little den, which looked really great after we changed it. And he said, well, that's where we found her. He pointed to the bay window. Oh, they both went white as a sheet. Well, yes, that is exactly where Mother used to sit in her chair. And she was so difficult. And the poor wife, who had been the daughter-in-law, said, oh, she was just so hard to get along with. Well, I'm really glad that you were able to move her out, because she must have suffered. She was so difficult. So it's very unusual to get this sort of confirmation in two different ways, two separate angles and occasions, but that's what we got. So we're going to look at different cases now as we go on, and thank you. Come back to part 2 on ghosts and other dimensions.